Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Hoagland and welcome back to another Draft Today video. As we kick off our draft here, we have a fairly strong first pack. We have a complete total bomb rare here, Pulverizer, 4-3 for 5 that with speed. This is deploy, troops you control get rage 1 for each different Ardent race among troops you control, and he's an orc, so when he comes out, everything's getting at least rage 1, and if you happen to have a human or like a coyote, they could get rage 2 or even rage 3 if things get crazy, so 10 out of 10 picking up the Pulverizer here. It's also one of the better Ruby cards in this pack. There's like True Heart Skirmisher, Minstrel, Interlude. These are all like playable Ruby cards, but none of these are really incentive for someone to move into Ruby if they aren't already. This pack's got 2 very reasonable diamond cards in it as well. There's a Decree of Banishing, which is a premium removal spell, and a Storm Rider, but I'm 10 out of 10 just going to go ahead and snake the Pulverizer here. Ruby's been pretty open lately, so hopefully that continues moving into this draft. And like I always say, like we're pack 1 picking this Pulverizer, we're by no means going to force Ruby, but if it seems even remotely open, we're definitely going to play it so we can play our powerful bomb here. In this next pack, we get our options from... There aren't any good Ruby cards in this pack. Mechanized Compactor is fairly mediocre. There's a Chastise in here, which is a very powerful piece of diamond removal if we end up playing diamond. Pulverizer is very good with Ada since it makes multiple bodies. Phoenix Guard Lancer is a very strong, powerful bomb, but I don't think we really want to start off by picking these 2 up. I think I'd rather grab the Chastise here because we're pretty likely to play this and possibly can play it with the Pulverizer together in the same deck. Yeah, I probably could have talked about a couple other cards in that pack, but I think Chastise was pretty much the pick for us. Up next, wow, bunch of really powerful Ruby cards in this pack. Flame Guard is very reasonable. Okay, actually I lied. The only Ruby card I really like in this pack is Flame Guard, and we're 10 out of 10 going to take this. 3-1 for 2, it's a human, and Diligence gets target opposing troop can't block this turn, so once this card starts attacking, it generally doesn't stop, because then they have to lead back 2 troops to block it, and generally you can pick one of those 2 off with a piece of removal, and then just keeps pushing damage over and over and over again. If you have this turn 2 on the play, and your opponent doesn't have a blocker, it's very powerful. There is a Gallant Spearcliff in there too, that's like a reasonable diamond card, but it's not something I'm super interested in. The double diamond casting cost in it is kind of medium, and it's worse and more aggressive diamond decks for sure. Like this is gearing up to be a more aggressive deck. We're also not guaranteed to be in diamond with just this Chastise. Like if we see something powerful come around in a different shard, we're definitely willing to pick that up. In our next pack here, there's nothing super exciting in Diamond. Mesa Caretaker's kind of mediocre. It can be a payoff for conscript cards, but getting enough conscript cards for Mesa Caretaker to be reasonable is kind of tough. There's nothing in this pack that compels me to move into a different shard that I don't already have. Sparkle Cap's like okay if we're already in Ruby Wild, but I'd much rather play my Chastise than play a Sparkle Cap. Callous Carver is a powerful blood card, but again, like not really interested in doing that, especially when Pulverizer wants to encourage me to play Ardent troops. I think I'm just going to go ahead and pick up this Ashwood Minstrel here. This is a card I mentioned earlier that's okay. It's also a 1-3 for 2 that like blocks reasonably well against the Dreadling decks, and it can jump us up something like Pulverizer ahead of curve. And we have an Elf, we have a Human and Flame Guard, and we have an Orc and Pulverizer, so getting a good diversity of Ardent races to maximize our Pulverizer's damage. Wow, so we should definitely be in Ruby. We're getting rewarded for this first pick, Pulverizer. 4 people have taken cards out of this pack, and this Pyre Strike is still here. This is a premium piece of Ruby removal in this format, so I'm super excited to go ahead and pick that up. Rock Slider is a card that we would love it if it wheeled back around to us. We could possibly move into playing another Marzul deck like we have a number of times before here on stream or on the videos, but I think Pyre Strike is the more powerful card in general. Definitely want to prioritize taking the removal, because I'm not too sad if we don't get the Rock Slider back, because Pulverizer kind of encourages us to move in towards playing the Ada deck. We'll definitely play this in Marzul if we end up there, but I think Pulverizer definitely makes us lean towards taking the Pyre Strikes first. Okay, so this kind of drives us into two different directions here. We have a Fire Soul Gemsworn, which is actually very good with the Pulverizer because it's multiple bodies. And if we end up in Diamond Ruby, we could end up with Flight Gem in this, and like a 3/1 flyer is very good against everything that's not opposing Ada decks. There's also a Razor Edge Duelist in here, which is a good aggressive troop, but I think I'm going to go ahead and take the top end uncommon here. Maybe we're just gearing up to play like a slightly bigger Ruby mid-range deck. And again, like, we have this Chastise that we'll be excited to play if we get, like, an Ardent Officer in the third pack, something that compels us to move into Diamond, like other quality Diamond cards, but, like, edging towards just, like, picking up just the Sapphire cards for now so we can pivot into a different secondary shard later isn't a bad thing. Ruby definitely seems like it's open, so we definitely want to be in that, but... Wow, immediately kind of feel bad for having taken the Fire Soul Gemsworn last time, but I guess I'm just going to pick her up again? Yeah, I think so. I think she's better than Ruby's Favor. And Shark Mart's like kind of cute if we already had Rock Sliders, but we don't, so we're not. I'm just going to grab another Fire Soul Gemsworn here and see how this goes. Ashwood Minstrel stock goes up a whole lot when we have all these 5-drops at our top end, so if that other Ashwood Minstrel that we passed earlier wheels back around to us, we'd be pretty excited to do it the way this deck is shaped up so far. And I'm expecting, the fact that, like, this Pyre Strike came around to us as late as it did and these Fire Soul Gemsworns did, I'm expecting that Ashwood Minstrel will wheel. I feel like no one else has moved into Ruby just yet. Okay, so we have a Furious Blitzer here and an Ayo Itachi coins. The way this deck is shaping up, I already have a lot of top end. I'm a fan of the Furious Blitzer and the more aggressive decks, but this one's feeling like it might end up being a little bit more mid-range than a lot of the Ruby decks I've played lately. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the Ayo Itachi coin, because with how many 5-drops we have here, I definitely want to play 18 or even 19 resources if we get a plethora of coins. So this allows us to play more resources without getting punished nearly as much. And there's the Ashwood Minstrel that came back around to us here from our first pack. So let's go ahead and just snake that out of there and be super happy with ourselves. We've got, if we don't end up in Diamond, we've already got 7 really playable cards out of just the first round of this pack, so... Plus this, you don't count the coins in your number of playable cards because these upgrade a resource, they don't replace a playable spell. Wakuna coin here. 10 out of 10, going to go ahead and pick this up in case we end up in Ruby Diamond. Sounds good. Another Wakuna coin. Yep, I think we're just going to like set up to just be the bigger deck. Like 3 coins, we could probably realistically play like 19 resources and be an Ada deck and just be like super resource heavy. Just like kind of go over the top of people with our Pulverizers and our Fire Soul Gemsworns in the most literal sense. Also, like, if we do end up not being in Diamond for some reason, like we open bomb cards in a different threshold, like we already have enough playables from Ruby in this pack, so we won't be too terribly sad. And if we end up in Diamond, we'll probably almost certainly play these Ruby. Probably almost certainly. Nothing too exciting in here. The Staunch Resolve is possibly playable, so I'm going to go ahead and pick that up. Putting +2/+2 in Flight on the Staunch Resolve into something like Flame Guard is super tough. Ruby's Favor is a card I'll probably board in at some point. It's an okay combat trick, and like we end up short on playables, or like perhaps end up playing Mono Ruby, like we keep getting just tons of good Ruby cards. We could play this in our main deck even. Does 3 damage to opponent, makes them sacrifice an artifact, or gives your exhausted troop Swift Strike, so it can be good, especially with like the Fire Soul Gemsworn, since they're 3/1s. If your opponent has flying blockers, you can attack in and give your stuff Swift Strike. Let's go ahead and grab those, I guess. They're a little bit of reach as well, which is kind of cute. Dun 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 dun. Yep, just grabbing stuff at the very end here. I'm gonna hide the Staunch Resolve for now. That card's not particularly good. Servo Slingshot. Get some bombs here. Some more bombs. Second Pulverizer. I had a double Pulverizer draft before. It was great. Nothing exciting in this pack for the thresholds that we are already in. This is kind of an impasse for us here. There's two powerful uncommons in this pack, both of which I'm kind of interested in. The Blessed Scout allows us to continue to play the Chastise that we already have. It's also another Ardent race, a Coyotle. We don't have any Coyotles yet, right? Yep, it's the fourth race. It's a 1/3 for 2 that Diligence, Conscripts, and Ardent Troop with cost 1. That's pretty good in a more grindy deck. If we wanted to take a more aggressive stance, we have an Ardent Monk here, though, that gets +2/+2 and Spell Shield until the start of our next turn. It's a little awkward taking a card that takes double wild thresholds, though, so I feel like I should just pass that. That being said, we didn't see a ton of good diamond cards in the last pack, but I don't remember seeing a ton of good wild cards either. This pick could definitely go either way here. I think the fact that we have Chastise in these 2 coins already makes the Blessed Scout the right take, but I think it's actually pretty close there because the Monk's probably the more powerful card on average. This pack's loaded with goodies for us. Wouldn't mind the Flamethorn Archer coming back around. Furious Blitzer's okay, but Feed the Flames is just another piece of quality removal. So we have Chastise and a Feed the Flames, and we're only in pack 2. So if we have just 1 to 2 pieces of removal per pack, we're on a good track with that. Especially in a build that ends up being a little bit more controlling and bigger, you want more quality removal. Oh, we got a Pyre Strike too, right? So we got 3 pieces of removal already. Shaping up really well. We continue to see things come around. Worth noting that last Rock Slider didn't wheel for us, which is something of note. This pack, there isn't anything too powerful in Outflank or Battlescript in terms of diamond cards. Pyre Smoke Cabalist is like an okay card, right? That says whenever a troop you control dies, gain a charge. When you use a charge power, this gets Swift Strike until end of turn. I wonder if that's better than taking the Iotachi Cavalry here. This pick seems pretty close. This is another Ardent Troop, but like Pulverizer is always going to be an Orc, so like the race really doesn't matter on the Iotachi Cavalry. We don't have any Valor producers yet, sans possibly the Fire Soul Gemsworn. I think I'm going to take the Cabalist here. Like, basically while he's out, your Spirit's trading makes charges towards your champ power, so like that seems really powerful in Ada, which is what we're leaning towards right now. This pack's pretty good for us. There's a Storm Rider here, there's a Boisterous Ballad here, there's a Swift Strike Force Sergeant here. I think the take is the Storm Rider because it's objectively the most powerful card. I think we want Boisterous Ballad the second most, but I think both of these cards are pretty likely to wheel out of this pack, so I'm going to go ahead and stake the Storm Rider here. We're pretty solidly into Diamond as our secondary shard here now. Look at our next pack here. This is definitely not a Stalagamage deck. We're really more of a mid-range deck than an aggressive deck. That being said, I think Boisterous Ballad is still a very reasonable card. Occasionally, this conscripts a total bomb like Voice of the Ashwood or William Rowan, and it just like runs away with the game on you. And even when it doesn't conscript a bomb, it conscripts, you know, a 2-drop that can usually trade in combat. We don't have anything that we're doing on the first turn of the game so far, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and grab the Ballad here. Like I said, we wouldn't mind if it wheeled out of the last pack, and we're pretty happy to grab it as a playable out of this one. Nothing we're too excited to play in this pack here. I guess Outflank is probably playable. It's like an okay Diligence Enabler that could also like save our troops from a lot of removal. So yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and pick that up. We're in Diamond. This is a fine combat trick. The fact that it's mobilized means that you can make it cost 1 when you need it to, so seems fine. There is a Rock Slider in this pack. There's also an Explosive Interlude. How many? We're only on 3 pieces of removal so far. I'm actually going to take the Interlude here. I'm pretty sure that we're set on an Ada deck after getting Pulverizer and Cabalist and these Fire Soul Gemsworns to just go a little bit bigger. So I'm not going to pivot and try and grab the Rock Sliders at this point. Someone else picked up the last Rock Slider, so we were definitely fighting with them for payoffs. And like Ada's powerful enough on its own that I think this is fine. This pack has a bunch of cards we're interested in. This is like, makes me really sad because we're the last person to take a card out of this pack. And like, if this would have been like 3 or 4 packs earlier, we'd get 2 reasonable cards out of it. Now we're probably just going to have to choose between one. Blitz is a good combat trick to like push through extra damage. But I feel like because we're a little bit more defensive and we're playing these more expensive cards, I'm just supposed to prioritize picking up another Ashwood Minstrel here. This card plays defense for us in the early game because it's a 1/3. And it's also going to allow us to jump up to our 5s ahead of time. 10 out of 10, grabbing the Ayotachi coins here. I don't have a reversion yet, but I think we're just, like, gearing up to play 19 resources in this deck, honestly, with 4 coins. Seems plenty reasonable with our defensive troops early here. We also have, like, a pretty good glut of 2s, so, like, we can, like, slow shard on 1, 2-drop, slow shard on 2, 2-drop again, slow shard on 3, 2-drop again. Seems plenty reasonable. The more aggressive decks definitely don't want this many coins, but we are pretty happy to have them. I don't think this is a Furious Blitzer deck just because of the way things have shaped up, but Friar Tusk is a card I'm happy to bring it onto the reserves against the Dreadling deck, so I'm definitely going to go ahead and pick this up. This card's very reasonable against the Dreadling decks because if your opponent makes 3 Dreadlings, it blocks 1 and then gains life to negate the 2 others, so they basically have to have 4 Dreadlings to attack profitably into a Friar Tusk, and even then they're only getting in 1 point of damage with 4 of them. The Ayotachi Cavalry Wield. Huh. That's probably better than this Ashwood Minstrel. We're almost certainly going to get a Valor Producer or 2 in the last pack, and occasionally this Fire Soul Gemsworn is going to make a Blackfire Sorcerer that makes a Valor for us, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and grab the Cavalry. This is an evasive card when it gets a Valor on it, and can also just, like, trade in the early game. We'd have been happy to have a 4th Ashwood Minstrel, I think, but the Cavalry is definitely more powerful. The fact that this card Wield should mean we're about to have a really good pack 3 because we were the only one in Ruby at this table. The Strike Force Sergeant came back around like we expected. That's our first 4-drop. Not sure if this is actually even going to make the cut. I guess its stock goes up a little bit since we have Ayotachi Cavalry, which cares about Valors, but if depending how good our pack 3 is here, we're probably going to have a lot of cutting to do in this deck. Alright, 3rd Ruby favors a charm, right? I guess we're still theoretically at a point where we could, like, be mono Ruby with this deck, but I think the payoff of playing Ada with Pulverizer and Cabalist is definitely worthwhile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that puts us at 14 playables, plus these would be like 17. It's funny. If we have a really nuts pack 3 with a bunch of Ruby cards, we'll try mono Ruby for funsies maybe, but the Diamond Ruby deck's probably the more powerful of the 2. I think this card's worth like 10 to 15 platinum too, so let's like pay for part of our drafted Ruby's favors. This card was like $1 when the set first started, so it's just like a playable uncommon. Alright, show me some bombs. Ardent Officers, Lava Shapers, all the Lava Shapers, please. Oh, not a Lava Shaper in sight. Ooh, what does that do? Wayfaring Conqueror. Deploy, search your deck for an outpost and put it into your hand. Exhaust 5 troops you control. Gain control of an opposing outpost. Huh. That seems pretty powerful. And this is like the first card in this pack, so we could prioritize picking up an outpost then to be reasonable with. So I think I'm going to go ahead and draft this. There's an Ashwood Firebrand in this pack that we would love to get, and a Leyline Purifier as well. But like the floor on this is a 3/3 for 3, even if we don't get a outpost of our own. And like occasionally opponents will have outposts out, and we can use this to steal them. So it seems fine. Like the stats on it are like fine, and if we get an outpost too, it's insane. Okay, sweet. We got some quality removal here. There's a Fire in the Hole and a Bring to Justice here. We're probably, even though we're playing Ada, we're probably going to be a little bit heavier on Ruby than Diamond. So I think the Fire in the Hole is the pickup here. The Grimskull Tactician isn't bad either, but I think because we're a more controlling deck, we probably want the removal to be able to keep our opponent's board in check. Even when we only get 1 to 2 attacks and just like deal 2 to 3 points of damage for 2 resources at quick speed is very powerful. In the next pack here, we get a Spearcliff Captain. Makes a Valor when it comes into play. When this attacks, your Valorous troops get flight until end of turn. So I think that's the pickup here. Like I said, we're probably still going to have 9 to 10 sources of diamond, which is usually enough to play double diamond card consistently. And even if we can't play that card until a little bit later, it's powerful enough that that's worthwhile. What our first cut's going to be in this deck? Well, we're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of removal. So, like, this Explosive Interlude at our top end is probably one of our first cuts. The Strike Force Surgeon's kind of mediocre. The Boisterous Ballad could possibly go away. The Flame Bard might be a little bit medium in a deck that is more defensive than aggressive. Like, we want the 1/3s as opposed to the 3/1s. Man, we haven't drafted a Lava Shaper in what feels like decades. That's just like one of my favorite cards by a lot, and I would love to see one. It's very powerful. Ruthless Intimidator here is a fine troop, probably a little better than Flame Guard in this deck even, but likely we'll probably end up playing both. 3/1 for 2 that can either make a Underworld troop not block until end of turn, or it can just make a Valor for you, so definitely stronger than a lot of the rest of the cards in this pack. I'll hide these for now, see how the rest of this goes. I suppose Strike Force Surgeon's pretty good off Ashwood Minstrel though, right? You just like get to play your 3/3 with speed on turn 3 and start attacking and generating Valors. Hopefully we see an outpost here. Like that, perfect. Now this is really sad, and again, like I wish we would just seen this pack sooner so we could hope to wheel something out of here. There's a Forgotten Forge and a Blazing Hammer in here. I feel like the Forge could go late because there aren't a lot of other people in Ruby. And the Wayfaring Conqueror, like the Blazing Hammer is just so good. I have such a hard time passing this card when we're in Ruby. The Firebrand is pretty good too, but I think it's between these two cards because we have the Wayfaring Conqueror here. Forgotten Forge is good because we're with Ada again too though. I guess I did just say I have 4 pieces of quality removal, but this is like also reach because it can deal damage to the opponent. 7 other people are going to take cards out of this pack, so there's going to be 5 cards left in it when it comes back to us. I'm going to take that Blazing Hammer. I think it's the more objectively more powerful card, and hopefully we can get a different outpost in one of these next 3 packs, or have that one wheel back around to us. There is a Bolt Spasm, which we're unfortunately not in the market for because we're kind of a more aggressive deck. There's an Iotachi Brute here, which is plenty reasonable. We've got a lot of 1/3s that want to attack on the 3rd turn of the game, so if we have a 2-drop that can attack on 3, this Iotachi Brute can be played on 3, so it's a little bit lower on the curve than its cost in the corner implies. This next pack actually doesn't have anything we're particularly interested in playing. I think I'm just going to cut the Twilight River in here so I don't have to play against it in case I play my first match right after this draft is done. Don't have a ton of good ways to interact with that. Hopefully, our being greedy pays off, and we get to wheel that that Forgotten Forge. Otherwise, I guess we could just cut the Wayfaring Conqueror too, right? 3/3 for 3 is kind of medium. We did pass a Firebrand for it, though. Ashwood Transmuter, another card that can reward us for playing a bunch of resources in our deck. Discard a card, create a random ruby common, and put it into your hand. So 10 out of 10. Gonna go ahead and pick that up. It's another elf towards our Pulverizer being having racial diversity. Even cutting these coins, we're at like 24 playable cards here, so I'm probably trimming this Boisterous Ballad. I guess we cut the Wayfaring Conqueror for now, in case that other card doesn't come back around. This is down to 22 cards, 18 resources. Honestly, I might want to cut one more. The outflank might be too cute. We've got plenty of quality removal. We probably don't need the trick. We don't have a ton of things that need to enable diligence in this deck. We just got 1, 2 so far. That's all we're going to get, right? Because like Mobilize and Diligence are out of set 6. The Bolt Spasm wheeled back around. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Bolt Spasm as a possible board card. If we come up against like a more controlling deck than us, we could possibly pivot a little bit post-board with like the Ballad and the Bolt Spasm. There's another Bolt Spasm we passed earlier too that might possibly wheel to us. We have seen the entire contents of this pack now though, so if that Forgotten Forge doesn't come back around when there's 5 cards left in that pack, we're not going to be able to play the Wayfaring Conqueror to have something to get. The curve on this deck is very smooth, which is nice. The Battlefield Ironsmith, another target Ironship you control is +3 power permanently. 10 out of 10, gonna go ahead and pick that up. We've got 3 Ashwood Minstrels and a Blessed Scout here, so like playing a 1/3 on 2 into something that gives it +3 power on 3, just like start attacking you with my 4/3 sounds very powerful. And that's 22 playables for us again here. Nothing too exciting out of this pack, kind of getting towards the dredge end of the pack. I'll go ahead and take on... I don't know why this card is uncommon. It's kind of medium at best. Guess they can't all be good, right? Nothing super exciting in here. Ranger's probably the most playable card. Moment of truth here coming up here. Did the Forgotten Forge wheel. Forgotten Forge did not come back around to us, but we got another Battlefield Ironsmith, which is fine. It's another very playable 3-drop. Probably want to cut one thing out of this deck. Maybe 2 Fire Soul Gemsworns is too many. Might actually post this deck in my team chat before I play the first match with it. And we'll talk exactly about what the specifics of why we came to the conclusions we did with what the cuts are. There's a lot of really playable cards in this deck right now. I'm not quite sure what I want to trim. I know we want to play Ada. My gut says the trim is probably like the Spear Cliff Captain or the Fire Soul Gemsworn, but both those cards are like really pretty powerful. At any rate, we're just going to go 9/9 on the resources, 9 diamond, 9 ruby. We've got far more ruby than diamond cards in our deck, but we also don't have many double ruby cards, and we're going to be playing Ada, which needs double diamond to activate. So I'm going to go ahead and add 7 of each of these. Go ahead and put Flight Gems in these Fire Soul Gemsworns. What else has a socket here? No, so we're going to go ahead and grab Ada as the champion here. Then I'm going to go ahead and save the deck, and that's going to wrap it up for the deck building and draft portion of this video. Remember to stay tuned for the matches that are coming up soon in the wrap-up segment to follow. Thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you back again soon.